Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass, India's largest platform for all conversations around entrepreneurship. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. Today is part one of a very special panel that we did around Women's Day, talking about what is needed if you're a woman entrepreneur in India and some of the key highlights and personal and professional journeys of India's best known entrepreneurs. Let me start by introducing our panel tonight. First up, Ira Singhal, Chair, Promotion of Education and Employment amongst Women, ASSOCHAM Women's Forum. Shriti Malhotra, CEO, The Body Shop, Asia South. Swati Bhargava, CEO and co-founder CashKaro. Lizzie Chapman, CEO and co-founder ZestMoney. Aditi Gupta, co-founder Menstrupedia. Let me first start with you, Shruti. What have been some of the highlights of your professional and personal journey? And then I'm going to come to the rest of our panelists for their opening comments as well.
I would start with the professional journey. It's a very small town dream and a small town girl that we are. Most of us, come from small towns. So that's the big part of our journey. And really the reason that we are here is today the way our parents brought us up and the kind of early education that we had and the ambitions that we instilled in us. So that what I would say is a very key factor in all of our professional journey. I would speak specifically for myself as well. Professional journey has been very exciting, but I would say that professional journey has been something which is driven by a lot of hard work and commitment, and that goes for that would be a kind of a baseline for all entrepreneurs and all people who are professionals and women who have come a long way. It's a journey of commitment, hard work, passion, and working with teams and kind of inclusive a way of working with the team. So that's where I would find my professional and personal journey.
Swati, no one needs an introduction either to the business or to yourself, but maybe perhaps one highlight that you can share with us of both your personal and your professional journey.
Well, thank you so much, Sunanda. It's lovely to be back on the show as always, and in the company of so many fascinating women today. I grew up in Ambala. I got a scholarship to study in Singapore after that, then a scholarship to the London School of Economics. I worked at Goldman Sachs in London for 5 years. And then Rohan and I, my husband, started our business CashKaro 8 years ago. And since then, we've got various international investors on board, including the most iconic Mr. Ratan Tata. So I think in my personal journey, the highlight has been the ability to sort of get out and do something that I never dreamt of. Because when I was growing up, the most that I could think about was that, one day I will go from Ambala to Delhi. The professional is to be able to actually build a successful business. And from what I've learned from that is that the most important thing is to have an amazing team, because the founders, when they start off, it's just two of them and the two can't do anything alone. If you want to do more, the bigger your dream, the more important your team, as they say. So my own evolution as well, from a manager to a leader, trying to figure out how to keep 200 people motivated every single day working from home during COVID. I think that itself has been a highlight, and we've learned a lot from that.
In terms of doing something completely different, Menstrupedia definitely is that in the marketplace. Aditi, your story as well is very well known, but to kick today's panel off, one or two of your personal and professional highlights.
I run Menstrupedia. It is the world's most innovative company when it comes to teaching and learning about periods. Personally, along with Tuhin, my husband, we started this company because of our own experience of facing the taboo. So just being from a design background, a team of engineers from design background, trying to change people's perception and being able to do that, and kind of bringing the change in what people think about periods, and bringing in an attitudinal change is something which is and which always empowers us to do more. That is the personal highlight. Very similar to Swati, I could have never thought of being in the company of these illustrious people, or doing this kind of work, but the whole journey of Menstrupedia has been so enriching, and I would rather say it has been magical, and it has been more like rediscovering what women can do Professionally, just the fact that we did not know anything about business, we didn't come from the business background, and most of the business expert would actually say that, they would always say that, this has to be an NGO, or this has to be like, it cannot be profitable, or you just cannot run it sustainably. So that has been the highlight. We are right now working with 10,000 schools, and apart from this, the material that we made for Indian girls, the same material is being used by, locally printed in 6 different countries across the world to teach and learn about menstruation. So doing that professionally, it has been my highlight. And during the COVID times, whatever we knew about running a business in the area of menstruation or sexuality education, or taboo topic, giving all that to educators, entrepreneurs, and change makers in form of master classes. So that has been quite amazing.
Okay. Ira, welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow. I'm quite fascinated for you to talk to our entrepreneurs, to talk to our viewers and our audience about your personal and your professional highlights, one or two that you could share with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And my story is the typical story of an Indian girl who has to struggle through things and struggle through people's perceptions of what our abilities are. That's, I think, something that all Indian girls face. Getting people to take us seriously, getting people to see our abilities beyond our gender and beyond the fact of us being a girl. And if you're a girl with disabilities, that is even tougher, and that's even a bigger challenge, because every single moment you have to break perceptions, you have to work that much harder to tell people that you can be treated as an equal. And for me, it was constantly an uphill struggle just to get people to start seeing beyond the gender, beyond the disability. And I had to go to court, in fact, to get noticed in that. And I currently am in a profession which is considered a very patriarchal profession, sort of male-dominated profession. And the world's perception of that profession also is a very, you imagine an IS officer and you think of them as men. So it's it's one of those places that I've been lucky to get into, and today I work towards changing perceptions of public towards women and helping women break barriers for themselves.
Great. Fintech is definitely seeing a lot of interest, particularly over the past few years, and in the backdrop of what's happened in the pandemic. We'll come to all of that in just a bit. But Lizzie, I would like for you to give us a brief introduction to ZestMoney and to your personal and professional highlights as well.
Thank you. And also very, very grateful to be here. This is an incredible panel. I hope it inspires lots of women today. So my professional journey has been defined as one of living without fear, and always not being scared of standing out. So I started life in investment banking, working in the global banks team, which was 100% male when I joined, also at Goldman Sachs. And then I went into investing and then into fintech, which was also a completely male-dominated environment. So it always required me to have a thick skin and to just not focus on why I was different, but focus on why I was capable and competent. And that's been, I think, the story of our success even at Zest. So we're in the lending business. We are the largest digital buy now, pay later provider in India today. That means we lend money to millions of people every year. And lending has traditionally also been a very male-dominated space. So we definitely got a lot of funny looks in the early days when we explained our dream. But I wanted to also share my most pivotal personal moment, which was obviously moving to India. India's really been a launch pad for my career. And I think there are so many positive things to say about this environment. And we're in one of the fastest moving startup ecosystems in the world. And that's why I think as women, we can build huge, incredible businesses here that might not be possible in the rest of the world.
My question to you, Shriti, and I really want to talk about what is the role of the ecosystem when it comes to promoting women leaders. Now, as the CEO of a company where we see a large percentage really of women working, Shruti, if you can really take this on and talk about the statistics which show that there are so few women in the workplace, and over and above that, there are so few women leaders. While it's open to this entire panel, Shruti, what do you think perhaps helped you prepare for that corner office and for the top job?
Sunanda, and I know everybody will have a similar kind of experience because it's very, very key. The one single primary, I would say, enabler to bring women to workplaces and to move up in the workplace. And the first primary enabler is education. I think the kind of investment that parents need to put on women's education is key, and you will see that as a very glaring reason for each of the women that we are here. It's how our parents invested in our education. So that's key. Parents enable our biggest enablers when it comes to creating the kind of entrepreneurial spirit and the kind of ambition that we have today. So education, I would say, is key. In terms of the second part, I would say the ability to have mentors who are able to mentor you and give you the opportunity. Nothing can happen if you're not given the opportunity. Of course, there's every reason why you can grab opportunities when they come your way, but then you do need a kind of mentorship program, when mentorship environment when you're in your career journey or even your education journey. So at any point of time, I think mentoring has been a very key reason for the journey that I have been. So education, having good mentors along the way, and I would say, in my role that I work with, it has come very natural to me because the company that I work for is a company created by a woman for women, working on women communities and empowered beauty business for the last 40 plus years. So I find myself very fortunate to be exactly in the company that kind of enables me to kind of look into this aspect which you talked about, women leadership and women entrepreneurship. It's I've been 20, almost 16 years in this company, and you can just imagine that how enabling and it has been for everybody who works in this kind of a company to be able to kind of be the woman that you want to be the businesswoman that you want to be the entrepreneur that you want to be. So I would say education, mentorship, and the kind of companies that are created. 50% of the company workforce for us today are women, and each of them are work with the same zeal, same commitment, is primarily because now I'm able to mentor these women the way I was mentored. So for me, the journey is, for me, these are the three aspects that I would say are very key in women entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Let's take a quick break. On that note, we're back in just a moment, though. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. With us here on Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass. Today, we have a very special panel of women leaders and entrepreneurs talking all things that matter most to you, the entrepreneur. I have some reports and I want to read out the headline of this, suggesting that the percentage of women CEOs dropping to 2.4% in FY20 versus 4.1 in FY16. So not only are there few women at the top, that has almost halved in a matter of just about 3 to 4 years. What's really going wrong and how can that be fixed? Swati, maybe to you first, and then the others can also jump in on this question.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's a really sad statistic. I want to go back to, what Shriti was talking about education, and a very parallel concept to it is that as you're growing up, it's education is of course key, and that has changed my life as well. But it's also about the kind of sentiment that the parents fill in the daughter's mind, right? If you keep saying that, look, your career is not important anyway, why do you want to study so much? Or you're going to get married anyway, like why do you want to invest so much? You just have to, like, pass your time, go to college until you're 22, 24, because after that the ambition is to find a good guy. So I think we have to stop saying such things in our society. We have to change the fabric so that when women are growing up, the girls that are growing up, they need to understand and realize that their career is important, and the parents and the family and everyone needs to lend that support to them, and to enable them to think freely about what do they want in their career, without boxing it as saying a happy marriage and a good husband is your ambition. So I think first, that definition of ambition has to change. And secondly, I think the partnership that is required of your husband as your partner is really important to make sure that women make it to the top so that they stay in the workforce. And for that, yes, of course, we want husbands to be more cooperative and supportive, but we also want women to be able to ask for help and truly treat them as partners. And associated to that is the support that you get from your in-laws. So you don't want to come home and be, feel guilty about, oh, you don't even do this at home, or you leave your kid and you go. So nobody can be happy at work if they are made to feel guilty at home. So I think there is a lot of this in our social fabric, that needs to change. And the last thing is that the women need to want it as well, right? And sometimes I'm not saying women don't want it, but they need to be less afraid. Like, I think that I deserve a seat at that table, and I am going to sit on it. And that's just how you got to think.
Ira, given how closely you're associated and work with women entrepreneurs, what would you have to say to them? What's going to encourage more women to really, take that seat at the table, like Swati is saying, and grab that corner of it?
I think the biggest issue is that we don't have social fabrics to support women working. So it's not about the top seat. It's also about, as women grow in their careers, are there social structures available which help them, maintain their work as well as their families. The problem is, in India, still we consider the family as the primary responsibility of the woman. Men can get away with not doing anything at home, but that's not the case with women. And whether you're in, a leadership position, or you're in a regular, growing towards that sort of position, your priority in your social network is always considered your family. And hence, it's very vital that we have social structures which support women into that. So just to give you an example, I was working closely on the issue of women and children, and I rescued around 335 child and bonded laborers within a period of 1 year. And one of the biggest things that happened because of that is the mothers were carrying their kids to work with them because they couldn't leave them back home. And it was the responsibility of the mothers to take care of these children. So, these were women from the migrant populations, and hence no social fabric existed. No, like Swati was saying, you need in-laws to support, and you need someone at home to kind of take that burden off you. So what we did was we set up creches inside school itself. So, a mother can leave her 6-month-old and a 10-year-old at the same location and go to work. And these were creches that we set up for 12 hours. They're not, so that covers your 8 hours of work and 4 hours of travel, 2 hours each side. So, those kind of structures don't exist in our society, which support women as mothers as well as working individuals.
Lizzie, maybe you could take this on first. And I want to talk fundraising. While it's a challenge for any entrepreneur, male or female, the statistics as far as women funded and owned businesses is very poor. Women tech entrepreneurs in particular felt the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, with a 24% decline in funding amounts in the first half of 2020 versus the first half of 2019. Previous reports showing that less than 5% of all funding which is coming into the ecosystem is going into women-funded businesses. Lizzie, you are someone who's raised funds at ZestMoney. If you can talk to our viewers and talk to our audience about your personal experience when it came to fundraising, what they should keep in mind about fundraising, and how really this gap in funding women-run businesses, women-owned businesses can be fixed.
The truth is really ugly, and you're right, the numbers are terrible, and it's a global problem. It really is. I know from my networks in Europe and the US, it's really not much better. I think that we have always had a very unusual approach. We actually try not to focus on the fact that we are women founders in any way. I actually typically wouldn't have even been on a panel like this, because my philosophy was, I want to be judged on the business, the metrics, and what we have delivered. In the early days, I said, I don't want to be a founder who spends 85% of their time building their profile and the rest on the business. I want 85% of my time on the business and the metrics, and I want them to speak for themselves. And I think the fantastic thing is, as you scale and as you grow and as you execute, which is what we're all doing and doing a great job of, your numbers do start to speak for yourself if you meet the right investors. So it's a very tough challenge in the early days, but once you've broken through that first level of funding and you just go out there and deliver, it gets easier and easier and easier. And I would almost say at our stage now, it's a non-issue. The numbers are the most important thing. So one really important takeaway, I would say, for all women founders, and I would say this is, never go into the fundraising process conscious of the fact you're a woman founder and what that means statistically. It's completely irrelevant. And if your investors get any sense that you don't believe in yourself as strongly as you need to, then they will lose faith. And I think this sort of focus on how hard it is for women can sometimes be detrimental. because actually, as long as you have extremely high levels of confidence in yourself and what you're doing, investors will tend to get over that hurdle. I would say though, it's getting much easier. The focus on things like Me Too and all the media pressure has done a really good job of, at least in the domain I'm in, seeing a shift in the way that investors behave. The kind of conversations they used to have with us in the early days have completely stopped, and I don't even hear those anecdotes anymore from other founders. So it's much easier. I don't want women to go away from this panel thinking it's really tough, and all the women here prove that it can be done with enough self-belief.
Will it help if we have more women who are on the other side of the table, holding the purse strings, angel investors, VCs, etc.? Open to everyone on this panel, but Lizzie, if you want to take that on first.
Definitely. I'm passionate about this. It's so crucial. And it's not just because it will get more women funded. It's because we will be better businesses. Women are the biggest consuming class in this country. They hold the purse strings in every household. And if you're building consumer brands and you don't have women building those brands and making investment decisions about those brands, then you won't build great companies. So this is absolutely critical. Again, there's so much progress being made. I see so many young, brilliant women coming out of VC firms, but we do have that pipeline problem that we've just been talking about. A lot of women do drop out as they scale up. So we all need to work together to reduce that drop off.
Ira, I see you nodding. Do you want to add to that?
I completely agree with what Lizzie was saying, because unless you have enough women on the other side of the table, you're not getting the women's perspective. And she's completely right. Women are the biggest consumers. Women are the ones who do all the shopping. So not having them as part of your team, not having them as one of the people who design the initiatives, design your products, it just makes you design products that are not that comfortable for your audience and not that appealing to your audience. So it makes complete sense to have a very inclusive panel with women as part of all sides of the spectrum, because we are the consumers. So why not have us as part of the teams designing those products and selling those products?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I just wanted to build on from Lizzie's point about the funding first, and then, having more investors. Yes, of course. In our case, so Rohan and I, one male, one female kind of thing, right? And we have never got a question, neither about is it a problem being married and actually running a business. I have never got a question about my commitment to the business, and the fact that I'm a woman has never come up in any of our investor meetings. And I think it has to do a lot, like Lizzie said, with having tons of confidence, because, and then it is all about the numbers. I personally never think of myself as a woman entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur first, and that is it. So I think just have to go back to basics. It's the same advice that we would give to a man who was going for an investor meeting. There's no difference.
That's all we could manage back into part one of this very special masterclass. But do remember that part two is coming up. We're going to continue talking about issues that matter most to entrepreneurs, particularly women entrepreneurs, including what 2021 is looking like and what the new normal and the new way of working is perhaps looking like. That's coming up in part two. For tonight, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. What more, very briefly, do you think needs to be done to fix this gender gap in the workplace?
Women LFP, labor force participation ratio, is the lowest in India, in all the South Asian countries. If we increase the rural manufacturing, and the women can, take up these jobs when they are at their home or in the community, that would increase their participation.
Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. You're watching Masterclass, a digital-first platform where we bring you conversations that make the most sense to you, the entrepreneur. If it matters to you, we've got it covered right here on the Leaders of Tomorrow. Tonight, I have a very special panel of women leaders and entrepreneurs talking about all things that matter to you, the entrepreneur. Let me introduce our panel tonight. Ira Singhal, Chair, Promotion of Education and Employment Amongst Women, ASSOCHAM Women's Forum. Shriti Malhotra, CEO, The Body Shop, Asia South. Swati Bhargava, CEO and co-founder CashKaro. Lizzie Chapman, CEO and co-founder ZestMoney. Aditi Gupta, co-founder Menstrupedia. What's going to encourage more women to really, take that seat at the table actually and grab that corner?
The ability to have mentors who are able to mentor you and give you the opportunity.
The partnership that is required of your husband as your partner is really important to make sure that women make it to the top.
I want to talk about the number of women who are coming back into the workplace post the pandemic. Research showing that 90% women compared to about 98% of men have come back into the workplace post the pandemic. My question to you is, what's perhaps the biggest challenge, even as work from home is becoming somewhat the norm, at least for a lot of industries? Do you see this perhaps encouraging more women to come in? What more can be done then to ensure that the same levels, at least as previously, is being maintained?
Sunanda, I think what has happened is that with the pandemic and with what has happened in 2020, still there are a lot of areas that are still being grappled with. And though men are coming back into the workforce, there's still a lot of domestic and specific safety concerns that are there at households and at places. And men, again, the traditional mindset is coming in, men being the traditional owners or the breadwinners, considered to be the traditional breadwinners. They are taking that leap and moving to the workplace. And women considering themselves as having a larger responsibility to take care of the family are staying back and therefore not returning to the workplace in such large numbers. I think that again comes from the cultural and societal and structural context that we always have, that we have to believe that things can be managed, and we have to believe that we have to get help and arrange our lives and our structures in such a way that we can come back to the workplace. So the only thing I think would be holding it back is the women themselves and how they think about their workplace. So that is the one that we need to change, and we need more women to think that they should get back to the workplace because it's about them and it's about building their own careers. Having said that, work from home is there to stay. I would say it's been probably the single largest change or game changer that is going to come up and has come up and going to come up, which will change the way women look at workplace and will enable large number of women to keep entering the workplace and remain in it. So I would say yes, that it's about women who need to take that leap forward and say that you can get back to the workplace and make the decision for themselves.
Swati, this is a question that has come in for you from Shrishti. She says she's an assistant manager. Swati recently raised Series B funding for her company and has names such as Mr. Ratan Tata on board. What was that experience like, is her question.
Well, the experience of meeting Mr. Tata, that itself was an experience. So after we got our Series A funding, I requested Vani to arrange a meeting, and she did that. And we went to the Taj in Mumbai. I remember walking into this big wooden panel room, and a big boardroom where he was sitting and having his lunch. I was basically presenting on the other side. And the iconic, the moment I feel which actually changed how that meeting went was the fact that they told me, hey, you can pitch here, on this side, and Mr. Tata is having his lunch. And I thought, how will we make any eye contact if I am there and he's here? So I just said, sir, do you mind if I don't use the pitch and I just have a conversation with you and just sit across from you on the table? And he said, yeah, why not? And I said, that's it, 15 minutes, just had a chat with him, what we're doing with the business. And then I said to him, sir, what do you think of our business? And he said, in a country that loves to save money, you are giving free money. What's there not to love? And that's basically how that went. So the lesson for me was that even if it is someone as intimidating as Mr. Ratan Tata, if you feel in that situation that something is not right, it's not fitting, if only this were happen, just ask the question. Do not take no to be the answer, because I asked him, can I not pitch and just talk? And I think that's what changed everything, because he could connect with us as individuals.
Great. Let's talk about the role of the ecosystem. And I want to talk of the role of the government very quickly as well. And perhaps, Shruti, let me come back to you actually and really talk about the role of the government when it comes to this entire ecosystem of women entrepreneurs, yes, but women leaders as well, encouraging more and more women in the workplace. What do you think needs to be done more by the government if we want to see more women here?
In terms of what the government can do, Sunanda, I just feel that if you look at particular statistics, which is the gender budget, which remains at 4 to 4.5% since 2005-6, that just shows that gender aspect in budgeting has been a bit inadequate and something needs to be done there. And again, as we said, the gender-based budgeting needs to be really looked at from the principles of modern feminism. And we have to see that we have to have a feminist approach towards how we look at every kind of thing if we want to get 50% of our workforce, which is women, and really unleash their potential. So a gender angle towards everything is very important. Secondly, I would say, and which is probably going to be a difficult one, is really for the government to take a lot of on-ground hard actions beyond taglines, really hard actions on getting more and more women legislators, administrators, civil servants, and how to encourage these. These are people who are really creating the difference in terms of legislation, in terms of enabling work at the ground level. So really, how can we get more women? And I think it was mentioned in the group before. Can we get more women to make decisions for women themselves? So those are the two things that I would think is very important from the government point of view. But here also, I would like to take a step and say that the gap is so wide, the gender gap is so wide. India ranks about 112 out of 153 countries as far as gender index is concerned, and we have such a reason for it is societal and structural. So really, when we talk about pay equity, we talk about equitable work environment and all kinds of opportunities. Really, what is also important is for businesses to come up also and create a level playing field. So there's a lot that we talk about the government to do, but it's really also about businesses to come up and create a level playing field for the government. And it's really for businesses, they can and they should actually be the ones to create the change and work with the partnership along with the government and create the kind of change that we want to see.
Aditi, I want you to also, sort of pick up the threads of what Shriti was mentioning. Offline, you were talking about the ecosystem, including, crashes, the maternity policy, etc. What more, very briefly, do you think needs to be done to
Yes.
fix this gender gap in the workplace?
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone again who is watching this that women LFPR, labor force participation ratio, is the lowest in India in all the South Asian countries, lesser than Nepal, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all of that. So we really need to work. By the way, our girls are being educated more and more. What is happening is that the jobs that the girls will take, these educated girls will take, are not created first. The second is that I really think that if we increase the rural manufacturing, and the women can take up these jobs when they are at their home or in the community, that would increase their participation. One, this the government can do, increasing the rural manufacturing. Research show that if transportation, women always take the safer route, or a office which is close to their office, to go and maneuver, because they have to travel, they have to step out. And research shows that if there was a pakka road that was made, it has a it had a positive impact on the women going out for the job also. So making the place or the city safe for women to work, and building good mode of transportation, safer mode of transportation. The third point is that women, the statistics again also shows that women spend more time in finding jobs, and finding the job that suit them. Can LinkedIn, can job portals, and then Sheroes is doing such an amazing job there. So can job portals focus more on how they can bring on board more and more women, and help them to find jobs easily, and then keep all these women in the job force, and all of these could be done at policy level, at the government level.
Ira, this is a question that's come in for you from Surabhi Kulakshetra. She says she's the MD and director at Unicorp. What all can be done in reality so that we can bring in more women to work for a longer time in the workplace? And Ira, when you're responding to this, something that Aditi was talking about, a lot of MSMEs tell us that things like the maternity policy giving 6 months paid maternity leave really to women employees is something which is very expensive for a lot of small businesses. Putting in place other facilities, etc., is expensive for small businesses and perhaps could backfire. How would you like to respond to that, even as you're taking on this question from our audience member?
So I think the one thing that can be done is a lot of the businesses can maybe pool together and then create structures which will help. One bit that the government can do is create those structures, and local businesses can work with government organizations to create those structures and to create those creches and those policies which help. For maternity leaves, it may not be viable for all businesses to have that policy in place, but what they can maybe do is help women out financially in terms of maybe we can have pension schemes on that, which the organization can support, or sort of like we have in government, you have the fund, right? You have the retirement funds. So something like that, if that can be created, that will help. And I do feel one place that we missed out was where government can really intervene is changing the social mindset of, again, about women. The biggest issue is that what we've been discussing, that right from the family structures itself, where the whole family environment is not supporting women working. So that's something that maybe the government can primarily work on, changing that mindset in the home itself of how the woman can be outside of the home.
Let's take a quick break. On that note, we're back in just a moment though. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. With us here on Leaders of Tomorrow Masterclass. Today, we have a very special panel of women leaders and entrepreneurs talking all things that matter most to you, the entrepreneur. This is a question for the panel coming to us from Neeta Menenzi. She says she's the founder of Financially Smart. What can be done to increase women entrepreneurs in rural India? And this is always, such a big topic to really discuss. There's a lot to be discussed on this, but for the purposes of today's panel, any one of you have any one or two quick points that you may perhaps want to add to this? Lizzie, could I come to you on this first?
Sure. I mean, I think what is one of the toughest things, and we haven't really talked about it, but how we create real role models, because I think what you're describing, especially in the rural context, a lot of the women on this panel are not relevant, right? So what you find, especially in these sorts of smaller cities, is if you can create a couple of local heroes that are really vocal, you can do fantastic things. I have this very personal experience of my first driver when I moved to Mumbai was a lady, and she was not really financially independent and really struggling. I created a company with her, a tours and travel company. And what you forget is there's a huge demand for female drivers, because a lot of young women feel more comfortable on an extended trip using a female driver. Her business boomed and she ended up taking on many other drivers. We figured out financing options so that she could have really good quality cars. And it was just incredible how quickly and organically she naturally grew this business. Across the country, there are needs for that exact business. It's very replicable, but simply that idea isn't out there because she as a role model is not in the public domain. So one thing I've been doing is trying to amplify her story, just in the hope that there may be women in smaller cities that see that and can follow that opportunity. So role models are so critical, especially at the ground floor level.
I did see a tweet on that, Lizzie, and it got quite a bit of traction. This is a question that's coming for Swati. How did CashKaro and other companies manage their work from home while working during the pandemic and really maintain your work culture really when you were working from home?
Well, I'm really passionate about this one because we did so much for this. So we are about 30% back in the office. Rest, we're still working from home. So it's been almost 1 year. Never had we ever thought that we will work from home for so long. I mean, honestly, it's kind of what you expect the Microsofts of the world to do. But when an upcoming startup like CashKaro has to do it, it's a choice, right? There are people who went back in May and June, and we just took this call that for the safety of all our people and their families. We are going to work from home and we're going to make it work.
This is a question to Lizzie and Shriti, but everyone else can, of course, add your views as well. So, while we've been talking about women leaders, I do also want to talk about how the next layer or the next rung really of leaders can be encouraged. And if you could share one or two personal examples of what you're doing to encourage the CXO level of your companies, I would love to hear from you. I'd love for the audience to also, get these real life examples from you. Lizzie, you first, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. This is something we are passionate about, obviously, at ZestMoney. And it is back to the earlier discussion. One of the biggest challenges is at that point in women's careers when they're really taking off and really flying and can add so much value at the CXO level, often clashes with the same point in their life where they're having children and their family commitments are increasing. And so it needs extra special nurturing to keep those women in that trajectory. One of the key things that we've been doing early on is with young women who are coming up to that point where we can see the potential, but we also know that they're building their family and really enjoying that. We encourage them to really talk about their career within their family. And we encourage them to share news and articles and sort of morale boosting information about the business with their family. So getting buy-in at an early stage in a woman's career for her mission and her purpose is so critical. And then when those conversations come later on about a woman kind of balancing the family responsibilities in the company, hopefully her family has more vested interest in the company. We try and bring the family into the company. So we do a family day every 6 months where we literally bring in parents, husbands, kids. We try and make them feel as vested in our success. And this is something as a startup we can do. We're small enough and we can create that really lovely kind of familial feel. And then again, it comes back to my earlier point, which is role models. I'm a mum, I'm married, I have a very normal family, and I really bring that to the workplace. And so I'm very open about talking about my challenges, trying to do my, Amazon grocery order while we're going through the all hands meeting. I'm really, really accessible and open about that. And I hope that makes the senior women in our team feel that they don't have to put on a facade and that they can be their whole self in the office and still be a CXO.
Okay, as we've run out of time on this panel, I want to use this last question, which has come to us from our audience member, Ekta Shah. She says she's a marketing analyst. She wants to know what the message is of this panel to women who have logged in today. So I want to use that question and dovetail it into my question and take closing comments from everyone on this panel. Briefly, if there is one thing that you would want as a wish list of sorts that you want to put out there as we're closing today's masterclass, what would it be for 2021? Ira, let me give you the chance to respond first.
I think my wish list is that more and more girls start believing in themselves, start believing that they can do it. You might have been told by the society that you have limitations, you have barriers, but until you start believing them, they won't exist. We need to start taking those risks which have been forbidden to us, because as you can see from this panel, all those who have taken risks, it does pay off. Just plan your risks well, and I hope that all women decide to stand up for themselves.
Thank you so much for that, Ira. Aditi?
Yeah, same. So I just want to quote Maya Angelou. Every time a woman stands up for herself, without knowing and without even claiming, she stands up for all women. So every time you get to stand up for yourself, do that, because the sisters that are coming after you, there are so many women who are coming after you, are going to be benefited by your stance. Women did not have voting rights, women did not have contraceptive rights, and all of these things have happened because women fought for us. So every time you are into you are at a position where you can make decision, remember that we have always looked further while sitting on the shoulders of giants. Who are you going to build your shoulders for?
Thank you for that, Aditi. Lizzie, let me come to you next.
Okay, let me try and say something different than everyone else. I wish this year that we see a complete mind shift in the role of men in the home. So to quote another famous feminist quote, you can never have equality in the boardroom until you have equality in the home. And I'm sad to say that COVID pushed that back all over the world. Women took a disproportionate amount of pain in terms of looking after children that were home from school and in terms of keeping the family on track. So I plea that there are some men watching this today, I hope they take this to heart and do whatever they can to support the women in their life this year.
Shriti?
I would say, and and absolutely agree with everything that's been said, because all of us need to do this and so much more. My wish list would be that, and it might seem a little bit idealistic, but I think this is the time in history when not only women, it's not only about women, but it's about men, it's about governments, it's about everybody having a very, very straight, hard, activist, feminist lens. Because unless you bring that very straight and hard feminist lens, it's going to break in the middle. So while we may have good intentions, while we may have good thought behind it, but until and unless we become an activist in terms of really going out there and doing things, it's all about getting things done. And I think that needs to change, because we need to embrace not feminism, I would say, just because of feminism. It's the time to embrace the F word, the feminist word that we all kind of made, especially it's not really looked upon with positivity, but I think it's the time to take up feminism as an approach forward, an active feminism as an approach forward by everybody, including men.
We all need a healthy and a big dose of optimism, Shriti. Thanks for that. Swati, I'm going to give you the last word. What would you like to leave us with?
So a lot of wishes here. So I'll just say the other question which came up, what's the message to women? 3 things I want to say. Number 1, don't think that you need to change yourself to succeed. I remember that when I started work at Goldman Sachs, I met a senior banker, not at Goldman, elsewhere. And she told me, there are lots of men here. It's always nice to wear a black suit and have straight hair so that you fit in. And I've never got over that. Why should I try to fit in? I would rather be myself. And today I wear a floral top and keep my hair as curly as I was born with and still manage to raise money. So number 1, no need to change yourself. Number 2, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And I have done that with my social media, with my personal, branding as well. And I've not regretted that. I think it's added to our business. And number 3, please make time for yourself. Take out that little bit of time for a morning routine, for meditation. You might have lots of things to do for lots of people in the family, but remember, the most important person is you. So make time for yourself.
That's all the time that we've had today, though. Thank you very much to all 5 of you for taking the time and for some very inspirational messages and the conversations that we've had today.
Thank you so much. Lovely hanging out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We've run completely out of time. For those of you at home, if you have any feedback for us, our contact details are on your screens as we speak. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night.